again. Our next speaker flew all the way from Kenya, so I think it deserves special applause because it's really far away. And now Natalie is going to show us how to develop applications for the next billion of people or growing markets, I suppose. Yes, so welcome.
Thank you. Hello, good afternoon. I studied computer engineering and I used to work as a student in Intel doing chip design. And 2 weeks after my last exam, I hopped on a plane and moved to Berlin, where that was 4.5 years ago, and I've been a Go developer for most of this time. This is an awesome backend language, and this is not the subject of this talk. And my first year in Berlin, I went to Google I/O, and there was a workshop there where they gave you, to some volunteers from the crowd, a phone, and they gave you some tasks, like find how to get from one place to another, or find a translation for a word, or find maybe how to use a certain fertilizer, and some fairly simple tasks. And there was, on those phones that they gave us, there was an app that showed how much data do you consume. And after this set of tasks, everybody said how much megabytes did they use. And then the instructors from this workshop told us what can you buy in different countries for the price of those megabytes. And the answers were, for example, food for a week for a family, or maybe enough food to celebrate a holiday. And this was very surprising. It's not like I did not know that. That was the first time I faced so close this choice of what to do with money. A choice between very fundamental needs. And it stayed very strong in my mind after this talk. And 3 years later, I hopped on a plane and moved to Kenya. And I came to Kenya with an app that my co-founder and me were developing. And we were also doing the research for the 2 years before. And it was very interesting because during this time in Kenya, from the beginning of this year, I learned so much more than I did in 2 years of research. And I found out many things that were not available online. And my hope in this talk is that it will tickle somebody's brain here from the crowd. And maybe you'll have a really cool idea and you'll go and try develop something of your own. And when you go and do it, I hope you'll use my knowledge to have a better start point. Okay, so we start. We said we're here to learn. Let's start with geography. This is the world map. We all seen it in school. We all know that we are somewhere in this area. Kenya is somewhere in this area. And this is the world as we know. And if we take the 3D surface that the world is, and we reflect it on a 2D surface to make a map, we have different options. And the reasons you have different options is that you lose some data when you switch from 3D to 2D, and basically it's a question what kind of data do you want to lose? If you want to know more about this, XKCD 977, super cool. Or you can accept this as your world map and have no problems at all. All you have to do is join the Flat Earth Society. Problem solved. But let's say you don't like it. So we take another projection that is called the Gauss-Peters projection, and it was introduced very recently, about 300 years after the map that we saw in the beginning. The information that is held correctly in this world map is the area of the continents. And it looks kind of different, our area here or our Kenya here. And the information that the Mercator projection holds correctly is the shape of the continents. And if you ask yourself, why did this map was chosen to be the right one, where remember that this is the area where things were printed over this one, it's an open question, right? We don't know why. It's not like this map is 300 years newer than the other one. But take into your mind this one, and we're gonna talk about how large Africa is. The area is about the sum of the area of Europe and North America. The number of people in Africa is roughly the sum of the number of people in Europe and North America. And it's quite a lot. And our world map does not reflect this correctly. Okay, I will speak louder. So another interesting number here is the languages. While the number of official languages is not really far off in Africa, the number of actual spoken languages is way larger. And the range is also way larger. And the reason for that is that linguistics are still defining what's a language and what's a dialect. And take this into your mind, keep it. We're going to go back to this during the slides, during this presentation. But now let's look again at the area. We take United States, including Hawaii and including Alaska. We take China, we take Japan, we take India, that's most of Asia. We add to that UK, Eastern Europe, Italy, Germany, France, Spain, Portugal, and we still have space left. This is how large Africa is. And what I want you to take as a takeaway from this slide is that because Africa is so large, imagine how much hardware would you need to place there to have good internet. And this amount of hardware that we need is very expensive. And it will take lots of time to put so much hardware to have this good of an internet there. And yeah, that's a very unfortunate takeaway, but it's very important to learn. There are some cool initiatives that are trying to solve this problem, and they do it with a hot air balloon, or they do it with software solutions, or even with drones that project internet. And it's pretty cool, and you should read about them just because it's interesting. Now, I want to go with you over the answer to the question, why is the internet there so different? And we're going to look at a brief history of the internet, and I'm going to need your full attention when we do this. 70s. ARPANET, which is the military network in the US, has 70 nodes, not much going on in Africa. First half of the 80s, the UN sets up an organization that is dedicated to bring internet to Africa. Globally, the first ISP is being set, TCP/IP is being declared. Second half of the 80s, AOL shows up, personal computers. Your mom starts yelling at you, "Get off the internet, I need to make a phone call." While in Africa, the first networking system shows up. A few years later, 18 institutes are being connected in this very cool network. Globally, World Wide Web shows up. Finally, 1993, internet connection arrives to Africa, while globally we get Hotmail, we get Google, PayPal, IP addresses start getting connected to URLs. And then come the 2000s, and the first major internet connection comes to the continent, while globally we start exhausting the bandwidth with Skype, with Pirate Bay. Since then, we got also the mobile devices, we got Reddit, we got YouTube. Africa got the right to manage their IPs, and high-speed network reaches 0.4%. What do we have globally? Coursera, Snapchat. We have cool ideas, but the technological challenge is no longer there, really. One quick slide that I want to do additionally is look at the number of the internet users over this same timeline. So it starts roughly in the same place, right? 0 point something. And then it slowly grows and grows and grows and grows. And then we reach this year where roughly half of the world has internet. And this includes Africa, and this includes all the other continents. While in Africa, it's about 20%. And it's not nice. This milestone of 2005, 5% of the population in Africa has connection to the internet outside under the sub-Saharan area, while globally, billion people connected. That's a huge gap. And it looks really bad in a graph. You see a large gap, and it doesn't look like it's going to get that much better. But if we add to that the number of mobile subscriptions, suddenly it looks so much nicer. The gap is not that big, and it does get smaller because more people get mobile phones everywhere. But maybe not so many people keep getting desktops and laptops in Africa. And this brings this question of, should you develop mobile first when you go to Africa? Because you hear this buzzword at Morik, maybe. And my answer is no. You should do mobile only. Most of the people that will interact with your product will do it from their phone, and only from their phone. And what kind of apps are popular right now? So financial, medical, educational, there are all kinds of NGOs, and they're all popular, and there will be always demand for them. Transportation and sharing. There is Uber in Kenya. There is Uber in most of African countries, and there's even local competitors to most of those companies. And yes, you need weather, you need agriculture. Everybody have Facebook, everybody have Twitter. And everybody has this funky app that reads out verses from the Bible or Quran for you, which is not the thing I saw much here. And this slide is from the website AppTrace, and it shows the most popular downloaded apps this week. And this is an easy comparison to start with. We do US versus Norway, Play Store versus App Store, and well, no big surprises, right? People here like Instagram and Snapchat and Messenger, and well, a bunch of apps I don't know, like 568, 864. What's up? What's that? The next slide will be the same with Kenya and Congo. And I want you all to take a second to think what kind of apps you're going to see there. Quick survey. Is this the flag of Kenya or of Congo? All those who think Congo, raise your hand. One person. All those who think it's Kenya, raise your hand. Half, three-quarters of the crowd, but some people still don't raise their hands. Well, yes, this is Kenya. You guys are doing good. You would not imagine how many people say this is Congo. So, yeah, fun with flags. You all been watching it. Okay, what people like in Kenya? They download Opera Mini, Facebook Lite, WhatsApp. What do iPhone users in Kenya like? WhatsApp, Taxify, which is the local competitor to Uber, Messenger, YouTube, Facebook Not Lite. People in Congo. Instagram, WhatsApp, Share It. We're going to talk about that app. Facebook, Facebook Lite, some others. And what do Congo users in Kenya like? Congo users in the App Store. YouTube, Instagram, Share It, Photos app. And this is pretty interesting, right? Because how many do you think people in Congo own an iPhone? Maybe not that much. And that is interesting because this information is definitely correct. It belongs to a company that I used to work for, and I know that they're very pedant about their information, but maybe it's just a bad representation. Maybe looking at the iPhone stats for Congo or for Kenya is not your best move. And I will show you during this presentation also that maybe not even the Android part is your best shot to look, because not many people have a Play Store user, because downloading an app costs money, because it comes from your data, because Wi-Fi is not too common. And if you have a better way of downloading an app that does not take data, people will take it. And the takeaway that I want you to have from this slide is that information you get from places, sources like this one, is not always your best choice, because while it's correct, it does not represent everything in the best way. And the next slide will be the same for Vietnam and for Japan. And that's also interesting, because while in Vietnam people use lots of apps about maybe taking pictures and making them fun, I have no idea what's going on in Japan. It's all in Japanese. And this is also cool because it means that their market is so good as it is, that they don't need even the connection to global apps. And it's out of the scope of our talk here, but it's also interesting to know, because if you want to go to Asia maybe, Japan should not be your first choice if you don't have locals. So we just saw this logo of Taxify, and you all probably know Uber. And I want to tell you what it is like when you call an Uber in Kenya. Maybe also a few words on why would you use Uber and not an alternative. So the driving is done in the English way, which is wrong, of course. The public transportation is pretty much only matatu, which is this opened minivans that you can hop in and out, and they would usually stop in the right side, on the left side of the road, and they would drive really fast with colorful lights and everything. And besides locals, nobody really knows their route or the hours. And walking is also fairly hard because there's no really good pavements. It's mostly sand, and once it's far, you get tired of walking long distances like that. So you open the app and you write your destination, and you choose as a pickup point the current location, and you hit find the driver. And it searches, and then it matches you with the driver, and you get the notification, your driver is Moses, and then you get a phone call. Hello, hi, I'm your driver. Nice to meet you. Where are you? Can you see in the address maybe? It says there, Fayetteville Estates. Ah, okay, I'm coming. See you. Getting my jacket, leaving the house, getting notification your driver is here, and I'm getting a phone call. Hi, I'm here. Okay, I'm coming out. Hopping in the car, then the driver starts the ride, sees the destination, and tells me, okay, where are we going? I'm like, well, you see, I wrote the name of that place I want to go to. Ah, okay. And how do we get there? I guess you can see I'm not a local, right? You would know the way to get there better than me. And then you hear different answers, like maybe you know a better way to get there, or you have a favorite way, or maybe you can open your Google Maps on your phone and navigate me. Yes, I can. I don't really want to. The point of the app is maybe for the local person to do the driving. And then sometimes you can end up negotiating. You're gonna open the app. No, I don't want to open the app. No, open the app. And then you convince the driver, and then they pull this menu from their top, and then they activate the data plan for the app, and then they start driving. And one of the times there was even a situation where the map was showing this blue path, and I was sitting in the front seat, and the guy seemed confused. So I was reading the map with him, and we came to this roundabout, and I told him, and now we go left, right? And he was sure we go straight. The blue line on the map is not translated for him to this is where you have to go, which is pretty surprising. Not that I'm saying what's right and what's wrong, but the takeaway for you from this one is that the use of the app, the UI, the UX is going to be really different from what you plan. Imagine how many smart people sat in Uber as UX designers and planned this really nice user journey, and then it's all just phone calls. And then imagine you're gonna design your cool app and how many different users it's gonna have. Anybody knows this logo? It's called Share It. This is an app to share files over Bluetooth. And this is probably going to be the main distributor of apps, even more than the Play Store. And the reason to that is that once you have an app with an APK on your phone, you can share it with all your friends, not using any data, which is pretty cool. It saves you quite some money. the average data plan for a person in Kenya, according to official stats from Safaricom, is about 200-300 megabytes a month. Access to Wi-Fi is not very common. So if we do a quick math, it's about 10 megabytes a day is everything you have all together. For fun, for talking to your friends, for learning, for working, for your business, 10 megabytes a day. And those megabytes become really precious to you because they're fairly expensive. And, well, if you can not use them and still get apps, that's how you're going to do it. And when I was talking to store owners in Kenya, and I pitched them the app, and then they liked the idea, and I told them, okay, go to the Play Store. We went to the Play Store, they typed the name of the app, and then they found it, and then they hit download, and then it says, what's your username? And then I asked them, do you have a Play Store user? Okay, should we open one for you? Yeah, why not? What's your email? It's not too common. It's not a thing. And that's why I learned, or that's how I learned, that if I want to share my app to more people, I need to be able to send the APK over Bluetooth. And it's interesting because it introduces so many challenges, like I cannot correctly track the number of users if I use the Google Developers Console. I cannot get good crash reports because I don't have this information coming in the Developers Console. Following the path of what's the user's journey, you don't have that much information. And you can tell me, hey, why don't you use some SDK to track this, right? And my answer will be that SDKs are heavy. And if my user does not want to download apps, having something send stats from their phone consuming data they don't want to is maybe not the nicest thing you can do for your users. And that's still a fairly big challenge. And I was talking about it with the Play team in Google I/O this year because I came to them and I told them, hey, I have this problem. I want to know what my users do. And many times they're also offline. And they said, yeah, we know, it's our problem as well. Maybe somebody here has a good solution. And I think the takeaway from this slide is clear. M-Pesa. I hope more people here know M-Pesa. Not so much. Cool. The official definition is mobile phone-based money transfer and financing service. Essentially, this is the bank for the bankless. Most people don't have access to bank accounts, whether it's because they cannot open one, they don't have physical access to one, or other reasons. They do have M-Pesa, which is an app installed on the SIM card of the phone, of the one that they get from Safaricom, which is one of the largest mobile providers in Kenya. There are other mobile providers with other financing services, but this is by far the largest. This is the largest to the level that many people have maybe two SIM cards, one for M-Pesa and one for actual calls, because it's a bit cheaper from other companies. And the things you can do with your M-Pesa is, for example, receive your salary. You can pay your driver, you can pay your employees their salary, you can pay in the market when you buy food, you can buy with it in stores. And this is used for really everything. Recently, Kenya also launched the option to buy government bonds and insurance and savings accounts using M-Pesa. And this all links just to your phone number. Pretty cool, probably more advanced than most of us. And yeah, they're doing super well. 60 million revenue this year, not bad. Users that use the app every 2-3 days. 130,000 physical agents, which are kiosks, which kind of work as your ATM or as your cash deposit stop. We would all love that as mobile developers, those numbers. This is how the interface of M-Pesa looks like on a smartphone. M-Pesa also operates perfectly from your basic Nokia. You just type this USSD code and then it opens a menu, and you click 1 to do this, 2 to do that. You send the amount of money you want, you type in the number of the person, and the transaction is complete. And I remember it comes built in the SIM card. Pretty cool. This is how you buy credit for M-Pesa. You get those scratch cards, you type the code, and with USSD, and you have the credit. And you can buy packages ranging from 90 days to 1 month, 1 week, 1 day, and even 1 hour. And it is not too rare to see people chip in, buy enough data maybe for 1 day, more data than they can use, like gigabytes, and just shift around the SIM card. So they all could maybe use Skype or something to call people at home, people far away. And that's how you use it. And it's different, and it's also interesting because for the mobile provider, it's very hard to track the behavior of their customers if it's 5 people sharing the same SIM card. But it works. And you can find kiosks like this one. You can find M-Pesa in large supermarkets or even in the markets. And the lesson or the takeaway from this slide is that when you say, I develop for Africa, you really choose your target group, right? You can develop for people who live in houses made of mud, or people in Kibera, one of the largest slums in the world, people living in the skyscrapers, or, kids who learn at school with iPads. And it's all different target groups and different personas, and maybe not also the personas that you have in mind when you did your app planning so far. Or you can also be like M-Pesa, develop for all of them. One solution that just everybody really needs. And it's pretty cool. My choice was Kenya. I did my research, I decided this is where I go, and a co-founder was my classmate from university, and we decided to start Konta, which is essentially a tool for store owners to take their store online in a very simple way that would operate for most of the phones without consuming too much data, and it has also an offline mode. And we were developing it during the weekends and in the evenings while we had a day job, and then we had enough money. And in March, I moved to Kenya, feeling all brave. We have this really awesome UI. And it's very simple. You can buy stuff, you can send messages, and you can sell stuff. Fairly simple, right? What could possibly go wrong? And now is the fun part. This is going to be a set of all the things that went wrong while I was talking to people, and have that all in mind. Try to remember as much as you can. It's humbling and it's educating. So, first thing, downloading the app. As much as we tried to make it super light, 3 megabytes, that's all. We used native code, nothing fancy, no special effects. Still, for people, it was hard to download, either because they could not be convinced to invest a third of their daily quota of internet for our app, which is really fair. Or even if I opened the hotspot from my phone, the connection was so bad, it just was stuck here, didn't move. I don't know what to do when that happens. We tried moving around to different places. Sometimes it solved itself. Sometimes I just said, sorry, show's over. I need a cable. That's my backpack. The next slide will show you a phone where the app was downloaded, but it was not interacting well. It was just crashing. And the reason that it was crashing is that I don't know, right? Because I don't have those crash reports. And we did have our own database. So, for example, we did manage to count the number of our users, but the crash reports was just a mystery. So we got all the logging information we could, like maybe operating system, time, user, maybe what other windows did he try, but it just crashed. And that was also fairly hard to debug because sometimes you use devices like Techno, which is a very popular device in Nairobi. And when you try to look in Stack Overflow for this error message and the name of the model, it's like, what are you talking about? I don't know those. But if many people from the crowd will start developing, maybe next year in Stack Overflow there'll be a bit more debugging. Yes.
Yes, so we managed to run out of battery. I hope we'll get back really soon. Please.
It's part of the adventure. As you all know, not all places in Africa are like Nairobi that you actually have sockets. We're not surprised by this, are we? If I remember correct, the slide after will show you a device that claims that it's offline. Even though I just downloaded the app, pretty sure it means I have internet connection, but it shows offline because the sensor recognizes that it's offline.
Yes, sorry about that.
Crashed because unknown and offline. And why is it offline? I still don't know. There were some things we managed to debug, and there were some things we did not manage to debug, and this is one of them. Please get Techno devices. Please play with them. Have answers in the internet. Images. We assumed, because we're both backend developers and we don't know much about frontend and we don't know much about UI, and we learned things as we went, so we assumed that having the interface with an image of the item you want to sell makes sense, but it doesn't. The internet connection is slow and it can time out, and you either get this message or you just get the default image, which is pretty ugly either way. And your takeaway from here should be that design the interface of your app to be completely without images. Have images optional, but it should look really nice without. Now, one of the recommendations I heard was use words, but even that is a problem because this was the UI, and it said that if you want to add and remove items, you're going to click this. I assumed it makes sense. But when I saw people play with the app, and then they asked me, okay, I opened my store, how do I add items? And manage stock is not always clear enough. Edit items was clear enough for everyone. So you may say, use logos, right? Why use words? Because not everybody speaks English, not everybody speaks Swahili. Okay, so we have this screen, and then one of the users looks at the screen and says, wait, how do I rename a product? It's like, well, pencil, right? No, it's not clear for everyone. You don't always would link pencil to editing. And I don't have a good answer why or what should you use. But make sure that in the country you want to go, you talk to local people, you find your local designers, and they help you get this answer right. And that is it. So all the takeaways, if we recap them real quick. Internet is not available everywhere. You're going to a mobile-only world where the demand is different, the use of your app is going to be different, the way it's distributed is going to be different, the way you're receiving money is different. Don't plan on credit cards and PayPal. Plan on M-Pesa. The variety and the personas who are going to use your app are different. The data is not always available. App Store is not the main source of distribution, and not always the popular ones, because the information on what is the popular one is not fully correct or fully representing. Common devices is not what you're used to, maybe, or also not what you see online. Images, languages, and symbols can cause confusion. And regardless, I hope that this talk still convinced you and tickled your brain a bit, and you're going to be curious when you go home and you're going to read a bit more, and maybe one or two of you will say, I have this cool idea I should try. And if you do it, please talk to me. I would love to help you. I would love to share more of my knowledge. And if you go to Kenya, I would love to introduce you my developer and designer friends there. Thank you.
Yes, and we have enough time to ask questions, so don't hesitate. Just go ahead. Please.
Yes, it was a secret question. The question was whether things can happen over SMS, and the answer is definitely. Lots. The way you would charge your phone is essentially with credit would be maybe not over SMS but USSD, and many other types of interaction already use the same way. And our plan in Quanta was also to do the same. So yeah, it's a good direction. Yeah. The question was how would we name the different things we sell, for example, vegetables? The answer to that is we don't name them. We give each seller to do it for themselves. And we, I guess, mainly try not to get in the way because it's not very different from interaction of selling things online stores already. So you just give the platform and you can maybe in the future offer some other type of help, but essentially you just give the platform.
Yes, please.
You showed us the UI for the seller to fill in everything, but is there a UI for the buyer, or is it just a catalog that you see things, or can you actually have a shopping cart and you pay with that, or how does it work?
The buyer UI is essentially a search. You search either by store name or by product name, and then once you hit search, it just shows you a list, and you can click on the item, and it brings you to the store.
Yes, please.
Are there any cryptocurrency initiatives going on in Africa, like the distributed community economy with you saw the smart contract stuff and getting stuff work done off your device for cheap, but also distributed easy to make your wallets and stuff like that. You don't need identification or banks.
So the question is about whether cryptocurrency initiatives are going on in Africa, right? The answer is yes, but my feeling, and it's only personal from my experience, of course, is that the conversation around cryptocurrency in Africa is very active outside of Africa. But when you go and talk to the average person in Africa, they don't have a Bitcoin wallet. They do have M-Pesa user or another equivalent. And it's not cryptocurrency, but it's still mobile. It's still very easy to use. You don't need internet connection, and you don't need even a bank account, so it saves you so much of the bureaucracy. Yes.
Which platform would you recommend to develop apps for places like Kenya? Would be Android or web? I guess iPhone, not much.
Yeah. The question is what platform is recommended, or my recommendation for a platform, given that iOS is not the best choice. So it's between Android and web, right? My thought is actually that app is better, even though that there are cool initiatives like progressive web apps and such. The reason that I like apps better is that you can make them native and then they're very light, and you limit in advance the amount of data you're going to use. So you know the volume of your app, and that's pretty much as much data as you're going to use. While if you have a progressive web app, you downloaded some things from the website, but then you keep downloading as you go. And this can drain your data plan, and you're not really aware of it if you're not tracking it. And that's not nice.
Yes, thank you.
applications. I understand that this selection was not very correct, but have you done any research on user experiences and interfaces on other applications? Like, does everyone or does some percent of people actually understand that pen icon is for editing? Have you done this research before or not?
So the question is, what kind of UI research have I done before? I did some UI research. I definitely tried to keep my vocabulary simple, for example, for the words, but I guess not simple enough. I did not find too many good sources on what logos should you use. And I know that there's some companies that approached me, for example, and said, hey, let's help you localize your app. And then I talked with them and like, where you guys are based from? And then they say some European country. It's like, well, your research is not better than mine. I would assume you don't have anyone on the ground in Kenya. Maybe you can start such a company. It would be very useful. So what you're saying is that there are initiatives by Facebook to have groups of locals to help you localize your app, basically in every country.
If they like your app in general and they want to have it there, they can look at it with fresh eyes.
That's a cool initiative. I did not know of it. I did talk to friends that are local UI, UX, marketing, product people. Yeah, that's a good move to do. I agree. Yeah.
How do you deal with updates? How do you spread the word? When there's an update and you have to.
Question is about how do you notify people that there is update they should do. People don't update apps too much. The sad truth, I'll tell you. I saw some older versions of apps that people use and they're fine with it, not using maybe new features. I know that on popular things like Facebook, people will take the extra mile to change it because people seem to really, really enjoy using it and they are willing to invest into it. But into other apps, if you don't have access to Wi Fi, you may not get very often app updates. Yes.
A little bit regarding what he's asked, but I'm wondering if you have experienced that the UX or that the user patterns are regularly the same as in other parts of the world, or do they differ?
Can you explain what you mean by user patterns?
Yeah, like you have these some like general rules. People don't want to click more than 3 times. Usually, you expect that the back button is someplace and like this.
Okay, so the
rules of applications in general.
the question is if they're how do you call it? Usage patterns. If there are common usage patterns in that I noticed.
Yeah, if you have experienced that they are like the same in Africa or different.
So my experience was probably very subjective because it was very business oriented. So when you pitch it to somebody and says this can help you make more money, I guess they will be more attentive and more engaged rather than the average user who just downloads something for the fun. So maybe my answer will not be the best for fun apps if this is what you're aiming at. But I didn't notice any specific like you stopped after 3 or you lose interest. People seem generally interested and trying actively to do it. You guys should go outside and chat.
I think the follow-up is that if there would be a more developed ecosystem in general, and people would be eagerly kind of try another application. This requires me to do complicated steps, so I will just abandon this application. Then they would definitely go such underdeveloped places is just not an option. So I will have to start to this application and click 4 times successfully buy something.
It's also worth mentioning that the common ways to sell online right now in Kenya, from what I saw, in addition to Facebook groups, is WhatsApp groups. So let's say you go to a store and you buy something, the seller convinces you to give him your phone number, and then you are being added to this group. And whenever the seller gets new mosquito nets, you get 5 notifications about it with lots of pictures. So people are looking for a smart way to sell online, but obviously the existing solutions right now don't work for them. Yes?
Are you using geolocation or certain stores?
The question is whether we're using geolocation, and the answer is yes. You get the results and you see the distance.
Yeah, I guess we are a bit running out of time, so if you have any follow-up questions, please find Natalie after the talk. Thank you, it was really insightful.
Thank you.
Yes.